Creating positive school environments that support both academic achievement and student behavior remains a critical responsibility for educational leaders. Many schools continue to face challenges related to student engagement, classroom disruptions, and limited opportunities for students to develop leadership and interpersonal skills. Traditional disciplinary approaches often address behaviors temporarily without promoting long-term behavioral growth or student accountability. As a result, schools are increasingly exploring restorative and collaborative strategies that empower students to become active participants in improving school culture. This action research project examined the impact of peer mentoring on interventions on student behavior, engagement, independence, and classroom participation. The study focused on how structured student-led support systems could reinforce essential behavior standards while promoting positive peer relationships and self-directed learning. Through mentoring sessions, behavioral observations, student reflections, and data analysis, the project sought to determine whether peer collaboration could positively influence classroom climate and support RTI MTSS Tier 2 intervention practices. This study explored whether peer mentoring could improve classroom behavior and academic engagement among elementary students. The project specifically focused on pairing fifth grade mentors with younger students who needed additional behavioral and academic support. Action research supports collaborative problem solving and reflective educational improvement practices with authentic school settings. The significance of this research extends beyond individual student outcomes by providing educational leaders with practical, research-based strategies for fostering restorative practices, collaborative learning environments, and student leadership development. By examining both qualitative and quantitative patterns within the collected data, the project contributes to a deeper understanding of how peer-led interventions can strengthen school culture and improve overall student success. The study was proposed because behavioral concerns and disengagement negatively impact student learning and classroom climate. Traditional interventions are not always enough, so this project explored whether structured peer mentoring could provide meaningful support. Research shows collaborative interventions can strengthen student relationships, motivation, and participation in educational environments. The significance of this study lies in its potential to provide schools with practical strategies that improve both academic and behavioral outcomes while also developing student leadership skills. Educational leaders benefit from interventions that support restorative practices and positive school culture development. The study also highlights how peer mentoring can improve classroom behavior, increase student engagement and participation, promote self-directed learning, and strengthen leadership skills among students. Additionally, the intervention supports RTMI MTSS Tier 2 practices by encouraging positive peer relationships, collaborative learning environments, accountability, and research-based behavioral strategies that educational leaders can implement across diverse school settings. These research questions guided the study and focused on the impact of peer mentoring on behavior, engagement, and independent learning. The questions also encouraged reflection on leadership strategies that strengthen collaborative learning environments and student accountability. Action research was selected because it allows educators to study and improve practices within their school environment while continuously reflecting on student outcomes. This methodology supports practical change while encouraging continuous reflection and data-informed leadership decisions. A qualitative approach was the best methodology for this study because the research focused on understanding student experiences, behaviors, interactions, and perceptions related to peer mentoring. Qualitative research allowed for deeper exploration of student engagement, teacher observations, and mentoring relationships through interviews, reflections, and observational data. Since the goal was to understand how students responded to peer mentoring within a real educational setting, qualitative methods provided rich descriptive data that could capture emotional responses, behavioral changes, and social interactions that may not be fully represented through numerical data alone. Participants were intentionally selected to ensure the study included students who would benefit most from peer mentoring support. Purposeful participant selection helped align the intervention with the behavioral and engagement goals of the study. Multiple forms of data collection were used to provide triangulation and improve the credibility of the findings. Triangulation strengthens reliability by comparing multiple perspectives and confirming consistent patterns across collected evidence. Using behavior charts, observation notes, student reflections, and mentoring feedback allowed the researcher to examine student progress from several viewpoints. This process strengthened the accuracy of interpretations by validating recurring themes related to engagement, independence, accountability, and classroom behavior. The combination of qualitative observations and visual data comparisons provide a more comprehensive understanding of how peer mentoring interventions influence student growth and overall classroom climate. Data analysis focused on identifying patterns and recurring themes connected to student behavior, engagement, and independence. Consistent coding procedures and reflective analysis helped minimize researcher bias and improve trustworthiness of findings. This approach strongly supports qualitative research because it emphasizes understanding student experiences, behaviors, and interactions within their natural learning environment. By examining observations, reflections, and behavioral themes in depth, the study provided meaningful insight in how peer mentoring influenced student growth, relationships, and classroom participation beyond what numerical data alone could capture. The project was completed over approximately 5 weeks using structured mentoring sessions and ongoing data collection. The timeline allowed opportunities for reflection, observation, and continuous adjustment throughout the action research cycle. Although the study involved a relatively small sample size, the results demonstrated patterns that may be applicable to a broader student population. Similar to quantitative research, findings from smaller groups can provide valuable insight into larger behavioral trends and intervention effectiveness. Expanding the project across multiple classrooms, grade levels, or schools could further validate the outcomes and support the broader implementation of peer mentoring strategies to improve student behavior, engagement, and school climate. The findings indicated that peer mentoring positively influenced both behavioral and academic engagement among participating students. Students also demonstrated improved confidence, communication skills, and collaborative participation during instructional activities. Teacher interviews revealed that students who previously struggled with participation became more willing to contribute during the classroom discussions and group activities. Observation data also showed a noticeable reduction in off-task behaviors and classroom disruptions during mentoring sessions. Mentors reported feeling empowered through leadership opportunities and expressed pride in supporting younger peers academically and socially. The triangulation of observations, interviews, and reflective journals strengthened the credibility of these findings and supported the conclusion that peer mentoring positively influenced both school climate and student learning behaviors. Visual representations of the data helped identify trends and demonstrate improvements in student engagement and classroom behavior. Charts and graphs supported clear interpretation of findings and strengthened communication of research outcomes. Specifically, the chart depicting student behavior before and after peer interventions clearly illustrated a reduction in negative behaviors and an increase in positive student interactions. The comparison highlighted how peer mentoring and collaborative support strategies contributed to improved accountability, classroom participation, and adherence to essential behavior standards. These visual comparisons provide measurable evidence that student-led interventions positively influenced both individual behavior and the overall classroom environment. Using a Likert scale from 1 to 5, with 5 indicating strongest performance, students demonstrated measurable improvement through repeated mentoring activities. Scores maintained position or increased across engagement, participation, communication, and reflection. All categories showed growth by the study's conclusion. The study highlighted the importance of student relationships and collaborative support systems in improving school climate. Positive peer interactions contributed to stronger accountability, improved behavior, and increased student engagement within the classroom. One major theme that emerged was the value of mentorship in building student confidence and encouraging positive social interactions. Students appeared more comfortable seeking assistance from peers, which helped reduce frustration and behavioral challenges during instruction. Another important implication is that educational leaders should consider integrating peer mentoring into existing RTMI MTSS frameworks as a proactive intervention strategy. The findings also suggest that schools benefit when students are given meaningful leadership opportunities that encourage responsibility and collaboration. Additional questions emerged regarding how peer mentoring programs could be expanded school-wide and whether long-term implementation would produce sustained academic and behavioral improvements. Future implementation should focus on sustaining and expanding peer mentoring programs while continuing to evaluate their effectiveness. Ongoing evaluation will help educational leaders refine mentoring practices and improve student support systems. Peer mentoring can be incorporated into RTMI MTSS frameworks as a Tier 2 intervention by providing structured support for students who demonstrate behavioral or engagement concerns but do not require intensive individualized interventions. Educational leaders can identify students needing additional support through behavioral and academic data, then pair them with trained peer mentors who model positive behaviors, communication, and problem-solving skills. Mentoring sessions can be integrated into intervention blocks, enrichment periods, or advisory times to provide consistent support. Schools should also establish mentor training protocols, progress monitoring systems, and collaboration among teachers, counselors, and administrators to ensure the mentoring program aligns with school-wide RTI MTSS goals. Future research should continue examining how peer mentoring impacts long-term academic achievement, student relationships, and overall school climate. Conducting this action research project enhanced my leadership skills and reinforced the importance of collaborative educational practices. The experience strengthened my understanding of ethical research, reflective leadership, and student-centered intervention strategies. To support implementation of peer mentoring programs, teachers and staff would benefit from professional development focused on restorative practices, relationship building strategies, RTI MTSS intervention supports, and effective classroom mentoring techniques. Training opportunities could also include workshops on student leadership development, conflict resolution, behavioral data collection, and strategies for monitoring student progress within mentoring programs. Collaboration between teachers, counselors, and administrators would be essential to ensure consistent implementation and sustainability of peer mentoring initiatives across grade levels. This project highlights the value of student-led interventions in improving school climate and supporting positive student outcomes by encouraging collaboration, responsibility, and active participation. Educational leaders can foster meaningful behavioral growth. Continued use of inclusive and empowering strategies may strengthen relationships, increase engagement, and create a more supportive and respectful school environment. These approaches also reinforce the importance of essential behavior standards through peer mentoring, encouraging accountability, positive role modeling, leadership development, strong peer relationships, academic success, and improved emotional well being across diverse school communities.